Total War Warhammer 3's launch is just around the corner, and there are a lot of different options for campaigns in the base game across Cathay, Demons, Ogres, and Kislev. Altogether, you're looking at 11 legendary lords, and with that is quite the decision of which campaign you want to play. In this video series, I'll be giving you a spoiler-free campaign overview to help you decide if it's the right campaign for you. Each campaign will play differently, with an emphasis on a particular playstyle, unit choice, or mechanic. Our next video in this series will highlight Miao Ying, the Storm Dragon of Grand Cathay. The eldest sister controls the faction of the northern provinces and is tasked with defending the Great Bastion against demon incursions, which will be the main focus of her campaign. You'll be able to find the rest of these videos as they're made linked in the playlist in the upper right corner and at the end of this video. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I like to do these videos is by giving you a no spoiler breakdown. I'll boot the game up on turn 1 of the campaign, I'll explain the mechanics of the character in question, show you their skills, quickly show off their research tree, and then give you an overall idea of what the campaign plays like. Keep in mind this is not a guide, but a quick campaign overview to help you decide which campaign to play when Total War Warhammer 3 launches. Feel free to jump ahead to any part of the video that interests you the most, using the chapters to note it in the timeline and the description. Before we get started, if you have not yet pre-ordered Warhammer 3 and intend on buying the game, you can support the channel by using the link to my Nexus Store. Nexus provides the Steam keys directly from the developer, and I get a cut of every sale, which helps keep the channel alive. Lastly, if you end up enjoying the content, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. I cannot tell you how much it helps out. But let's get started here on Miao Ying's campaign summary in Total War Warhammer 3. Loading into the campaign, we're at turn 1 here for Miao Ying. And she has some very interesting mechanics we're going to go over. So the first one I want to go over here is Ruler of the Northern Provinces. So this gives her a corruption of -2, leadership plus 10% when fighting against demons of chaos, and ammunition plus 20% for missile units. Of course, this is contrary to Zhao Ming, who has a focus on melee units. Now, as far as her actual faction mechanics, we've already gone through these with Zhao Ming, and I'm going to use the footage from both the Ivory Road and the Wujing Compass to discuss those right now. So let's jump here into the Ivory Road. So here we have the Ivory Road, and the Ivory Road mechanic is the same whether you're playing as Zhao Ming or as Miao Ying. Let's look at the start location for our caravans. They're going to come around from this region, and they're going to go through down towards their respective destination. Let's just click this one and we'll talk about destination in a little bit. So you can see that this kind of highlights the route you'll be taking. And on this, you'll see the crossed swords that dictate the overall threat of certain portions of that route. So this is going to denote from here to here. There's another one that'll probably be at this portion, then another one that'll go to this portion. And that threat is dictated by two things. One, it's going to be dictated by the faction or your diplomatic relation of the faction that you're going through. So you're going through some territory that you're at war with someone. So it's at a high overall threat. But if you keep using this route a bunch of times over and over, bandits will expect to find goodies on this route from your caravans, so it will increase the threat level. So this kind of encourages you to have multiple destinations, or even pivot your destination halfway or midway, or whatever point, halfway and midway, tend to be the exact same thing, at whatever point during your caravans kind of trouncing across the Darklands here. So you can say, hey, you know, I'm going towards this destination, but it starts to get really bad right around here. So I'm actually going to divert and go down towards Sylvania, or just whatever it is. You basically divert the route of your caravan to maybe dodge certain high threat areas that were not high threat when you started the route originally. So that is how the route and destination portion of this work. But if you take a look at these destinations, you can increase the overall cargo value of your caravan. So if you look over here at Sylvania, it's 2,400. To reach this location. That's how much money we'll get once our caravan reaches there. Let's go to 1,000, which is the default. So that goes to 4K as a reward for arriving. But since we're playing as Zhao Ming, let's increase it up here. So now we get 4,800. So it was pretty much 400 per 100, right? And once you reach that location, you also have a chance to get a unique item. In my playthrough, I went to Sylvania, and then I got the von Karstein blade as a sword, which was just a great little boon to my campaign. Now, the other thing I do want to talk about is your Caravan Master. Now, the Caravan Master is never a character you will control directly. It will always be a character that will just run these routes back and forth, and you can equip them and you can level them up, but you cannot ever directly control them. So let's go ahead and press Recruit Caravan. You'll notice too that the Caravan Master does not really have any impact on your yin and yang harmony, which we'll talk about in just a little bit here. But looking at this, every single Caravan Master will have this little modifier. So this one says Nangao ties. This allows him to have additional gunner units and then armor piercing missile damage plus 15% for crane gunner units, which gives this guy 2 crane gunners and then the rocket battery, which is actually a really solid Caravan Master, to be totally honest. But some other things you'll see is stuff like Ogre Friend, which puts more ogres in the army here, or maybe even related to the Empire, and you'll have more Empire units, just a ton of different things. So always look at this when you are selecting your Caravan Master. But this is the overall gist of how the Ivory Road works for Grand Cathay. Another big mechanic for Cathay is the Wu Jing Compass. So the Wu Jing Compass harnesses the winds of magic to bring prosperity to Grand Cathay. Directing the compass fills the respective energy reserve. The greater the energy reserve, the larger the benefits are. However, the energy reserve of all directions will decay over time. So how this ultimately works is you'll choose in about 4 turns once you start the campaign, I think it's turn 5, one of the 4 cardinal directions. And each direction, based off the total energy reserve, will grant you passive benefits and then active benefits when it is pointed at that direction. So for example here, let's take a look at the Great Bastion. Everything right now, based off of my current existing energy reserve, will get 500 defensive supplies and then a casualty replenishment rate of 2% per region in Cathay. And as this energy reserve grows up to 11 to 16, all the way to a maximum of 17 to 20, you can see that it gives even more defensive supplies and casualty replenishment. But if I were to point the compass at Great Bastion, it's going to also give us these active when direction is set bonuses. So Great Bastion threat minus 2% per turn, recruitment cost minus 10% per region in Cathay, that's only applies to local armies, and then army ability Celestial Intervention, which is a massive bombardment here that does a ton of damage. It will easily delete 1 to 2 units depending on how you place it. So a really nice benefit for going to the Great Bastion. For Celestial Lake, it's going to give us a lot of growth up to a maximum of 15, but it's also going to give us a ton of income from all buildings at 15%, and then chance of Winds of Magic increasing in strength by 40% in Cathay. The Dragon Emperor's Wrath has some interesting bonuses here. So once you go all the way to the max, it gives us a control of 4 per region in Cathay, but also gives you this Dragon Emperor's Wrath, which applies attrition to any forces outside the Great Bastion. So this is a great way to not necessarily reduce the threat meter, but reduce the actual physical threats out there by just applying a ton of attrition. It's also a nice way to forge out from the Great Bastion and do a lot of damage to your enemy. Then lastly, we have the Warpstone Desert, which is one of the only, well, it is the only one without any passive effects. It only has active effects. And this will give Winds of Magic will steadily decrease in strength, corruption minus 4 per region in Cathay, and then enemy leadership minus 6 per region in Cathay, local enemy armies. And of course, anytime that this is not directed at one of these directions, so if you have, if you're directed at the Great Bastion, the Celestial Lake and the Dragon Emperor's Wrath, or the Dragon Emperor's Wrath, will decrease. You see it's got that little down arrow here, so it's showing you that it's going to decrease per turn. So just be mindful of that, but this is how the Wu Jing Compass works. Now, another big mechanic I want to discuss is harmony, and this is crucial to both Miao Ying and to Zhao Ming's campaigns. So the way that this works is you have got this harmony gauge that will swing either yin or yang or in harmony across 4 big areas of the campaign: characters, events, buildings, and technology. So you're really going to be spending a lot of time trying to run that razor's edge between yin and yang and getting to harmony within all 4. Because once you hit harmony on all 4, you get a nice harmony effect, which we'll go into in just a little bit here. But if you take a look at events, that's just simply the events that are going to happen throughout your campaign. Certain dilemmas, certain things that are going to happen when you go in and out of the realms of chaos, whatever it is. Then you've got buildings. So let's click on Nangao and go to the building browser. You'll notice that in the kind of beginning portions across military, resource, landmark, and provincial capital, there's not going to be much effect on yin and yang. But when you look at defense and infrastructure, we start to get a pairing. So every single building here has got a pair. You've got 6 buildings here in infrastructure and 2 primary ones in defense. That will be one or the other. And if I take a look over here at the Labor Conscription Bureau, you'll see that this will increase growth, construction costs, reduction for all buildings, but it'll give me 1 yang. And it blocks out this whole entire category. just the same as this one would block out this category. You can see that this is going to give me income from all buildings and growth. So just a kind of difference of what you want. This is construction cost reduction. This is income from all buildings. Versus these two is income generated versus income generated and income from trade increased. Or these two, which is recruitment rank and control, or control casualty replenishment rate and recruitment cost reduction for the same units. So when you build these, this will affect that yin and yang modifier right here that says buildings. The last one you've got is for technologies. Well, not the last one, second to last. And that will, of course, each one will have a little moniker telling you whether or not it is yin or yang and how much it will increase or decrease. It will increase your harmony in that direction. But be mindful of this, and I'll go over it again in research, that not all the researches will increase at the same rate. Look at harmonic discipline. It says harmony plus 1 yin. But look at yin hex. It says harmony plus 3 yin. So you just have to look out for those when you're moving through the technology tree. Now the true last influence here is characters. See how it says characters 3. So taking a look at Miao Ying before we look at her actual skills, we can see that she is a that she is a yin character. And when you look at the actual recruitment of lords, you'll see that it will increase yin by 3, or yang by 3. Same thing here with the dragon blooded. Depending on what you're putting in, it's going to increase this. Heroes will increase by 1. So recruiting a new lord might drastically shift your balance in or out of harmony. And looking at the harmony effects, you definitely want to be within harmony. Diplomatic relations plus 20 with Cathay, minus 20% for all buildings, 40 growth, income increase for both yin and yang buildings of 25%, 8 control, minus 5 corruption, and then army ability ancestral warriors, which simply summons ancestral warriors. And as you move, you see where it says current balance yin 3 right at the very top there. Well, as you move left or right across these petals, these little blossoms, you'll notice that you'll get different bonuses. So diplomatic relations, growth, and construction costs and income from yang buildings increased by minus 5% on construction and plus 5 on income, but minus 5% income from yin buildings. And this goes further and then further. Now, on the yang spectrum over here, you can see that it does the same thing, just focused more towards yang with the penalty existing for yin. But look too that at the top end of these, it starts to reduce your control because you're throwing things out of harmony. So you really want to stay either within the first petal of this rose blossom or this lotus blossom, or smack dab into harmony across all 4 of these. Now the last mechanic I want to show off for Miao Ying before jumping into some character skills is the Great Bastion. Now I talked about this for Zhao Ming, and it's not really a huge mechanic for him in the beginning portions of the game. But for Miao Ying, that is quite different. This is jumped ahead to turn 10, and I apologize if this ruins anything for you. I don't think it is. It should be still pretty spoiler free. But really the focus here is on the Great Bastion threat. And essentially, every turn, this meter will increase based off of certain things. And those certain things would be the overall threat level of a specific Chaos faction north of this wall. So for example, now we've got Kurgan Warband threat levels at 100%, increasing by what was originally 14% at the beginning of the campaign. And also the presence of occupation or destruction of the 3 gates, Snake, Dragon, and Turtle. So you can see the Snake, Dragon, and Turtle gates are all owned by myself directly or by a Cathayan faction. That's all that needs to happen. It's just like the Ulthuan mechanic from Total War Warhammer 2. As long as inner and outer Ulthuan are owned by High Elves, any faction, it counts as controlled. So what happens here is once it reaches 100%, there'll be a turn or 2 delay, and then you get this little exclamation point that's like, hey, you know, attack on the Great Bastion has started. Additional Chaos reinforcements will arrive with the threat while the threat remains full. So, how you deter that threat or how you remove that threat are a number of ways. Let's go over here to the Wujing Compass. The first big one is the Great Bastion. Setting this as the active direction will reduce the campaign or the Great Bastion threat by 2% per turn. Also, the Great Dragon Emperor's Wrath will cause an extreme attrition to armies beyond the Great Bastion. So this can kind of reduce the overall forces outside here, so you can push out and start to take these regions as kind of like a forward warning or a forward operating base, an FOB as it were, before Chaos can actually attack the gate. So that's how you kind of influence this overall threat. There's also a commandment here on the Great Bastion. And one thing I did want to show off here in this menu, because we don't really get a chance to really jump into it with Miao Ying, are the 4 defensive structures. So we'll take a look at them at the very top of their line here. So you can reduce attrition casualties suffered from chaos waste attrition, because it will start to really ramp up in the latter portions of the campaign. Recruitment cost reduction, as well as recruitment rank increase. The Bastion Command Tower helps with upkeep reduction for the local army. So you can basically place a character here, have them have a big stacked army, and it'll have a 65% reduction on their upkeep, which is cool. Campaign line of sight increase as well. Then defensive supplies increase, also increase per turn when under siege, and then ammunition increase during siege defense battles. And lastly, we've got growth and casualty replenishment. Of course, too, we get stuff like the Bastion Fortress, which is going to help us out with a ton of things across your diplomatic relations, defensive supplies, growth, attrition, and then Wu Jing Compass cooldown -1 turn, which is quite cool. And of course, a massive garrison and discoverability of Skaven under cities. But this is the Great Bastion mechanic, which you will be using a great deal as Miao Ying. It's really kind of the central point of her campaign, is defending this wall and really kind of repelling all of the Chaos Invaders that are going to smash their face into the Great Bastion. Transitioning to character skills, we have some really great ones here for Miao Ying. So she has her trait, which gives us these current campaign effects, which is going to reduce upkeep for missile units by 50% for the Lord's Army, and then Harmony 3 Yin, which we already know about. Remember, this is all going to stack with this, right? Ammunition plus 20% for those missile units, which we already see too with Miao Ying and how he does this for melee units. So for activatable abilities, we have the fact that she can turn into a dragon, transformation of the dragon, but she also gets Wrath of the Storm. So imbuement, magical attacks, melee attack plus 24, and then immune to psychology, which is quite strong. She starts with Earthblood, which is a heal, then Storm of Shadows from the Lore of Yin, which reduces things speed by 45% for 29 seconds. And then she also gets Mastery of Elemental Winds. When 2 or more units in the same army share this attribute, intensity increases the power of spells cast. So it is quite nice. Also, Disdain of the Dragons, melee attack -8 in a hex around her. So makes it harder for things to hit her. Her missile and spell resistance are 15 and 25% respectively. She's also got Siege Attacker and then Encourage, Hide, the typical kind of fare, as well as Wounds, which is the new thing for single entity units in Warhammer 3. Now, moving into her actual skills, her blue line is exactly what you would imagine it would be for pretty much every other character: Route Marcher, Disciplinarian, all the way through to most things. Irrepressible. Now, Lightning Strike is something that has been a point of contention for a lot of people up to this point. So the way that reinforcements work in Warhammer 3 is every reinforcement comes in at a minute 55 seconds. Let's just say 2 minutes. Lightning Strike level 3 will make that increase up by 50%, or you can enable Lightning Strike battles when reinforcements are present. Here's a little tooltip for it. The option to carry out a Lightning Strike battle will appear on the pre-battle panel. Enabling this prevents reinforcements from joining the battle, but will cause your troops to start the battle with reduced vigor. So you do not have to do it. You can automatically have them have a penalty to their battle reinforcement rate, so it takes them about 3 minutes to get to you, or you start the Lightning Strike and they cannot reinforce, but you lose some vigor on your units. Just kind of be mindful of it. Then Quartermaster, Logistician, Alert, and then Great Bastion helping out with recruit rank, local recruit capacity, and upkeep. And then for the red line, it's again just like you would expect. It's going to be bonuses to respective units across all the way here until we get to Rally. And then that's that. These are also going to be the same thing for everything over rank 7, with Stand Your Ground at the very end. Then going through her special kit, she gets a kit of the Lore of Yin and the Lore of Life, which is actually quite strong. Earthblood with Power of Yin, which is going to help reduce armor and speed. Life Bloom, which is a passive healing every time you cast a spell, which is nice. Then Storm of Shadows, Missile Mirror, Flash to Stone, Evasion, Regrowth, another big heal. Talons of Midnight, an AoE damage vortex spell. Then Earthing, Magical Reserves, and lastly Arcane Conduit, which is now a passive 40% power recharge, not an activatable. And for her yellow line, it's just the standard fare here. Nothing new, nothing crazy. Not even any special abilities here. It's just got special namings, Deadly Onslaught, and then Foe Seeker. So for her special line, though, she gets Aura of Majesty, which is a passive ability. It's going to reduce melee defense by 9, coupling that with her Disdain of Dragon, which removes melee attack by 8. So it's a pretty good thing to work in conjunction. Harmonious helps out with diplomatic relations with Cathay, control, and corruption. Reinforced Bastion reduces the construction costs for Great Bastion buildings, which is very lovely. Master of Storms helps out with the Winds of Magic reduction for all the Lore of Life spells, as well as their cooldown reduction by 1/4. Opposer of Chaos is going to help with melee defense and ward save. Couple this with her innate ability to increase leadership against Chaos. You can see the theme for what we're going to be fighting in this campaign. Imposing Range helps out with range for missile units. Then Persistent Fire helps out with reload time reduction for missile units. And then Eye of the Storm is great. So this happens in dragon form only, and it increases base weapon damage by 50%, as well as AP and melee attack plus 24. It is disgusting, especially if you use with Wrath of the Storm. It is quite nice, but you can tell here, you know, like I said, she's really focused on missile units. And if you put stuff like Eastern Fires together, which increases ammunition and missile strength of a lot of your gunpowder units, and Sure Aim, which increases the range and missile strength of your non-gunpowder units, in conjunction with stuff like Imposing and Persistent Fire and her innate bonuses and her faction effects, you can see that she's really going to take advantage of those ranged units. Also Range Discipline, and then Wind Harmony. You'll notice that she does not get any special quest items, and it's because the majority of items that you're going to be getting as Cathay, as far as special, cool, unique ones, are going to be gleaned from doing those caravans. The long distance caravans will get you unique items the first time you visit locations. So you get stuff like the Von Karstein blade, like I talked about, and other fun, cool things. But this is Miao Ying, the Storm Dragon, and her really cool character skills. Jumping into the tech tree real quick, this is the same exact tech tree for Zhao Ming, but again, just want to go over this really quick just to make sure you know that you really want to look at this and figure out which things are going to affect your harmony, right? Some just say 1, some are going to say 3, like this one says harmony 3 for yin, and not all of them will strictly increase your like general stuff. Like a lot of the things like, oh, this increases your income, this increases this specific unit's fight ability. They're also going to be things that are going to help out with the actual, with your actual faction mechanics, like alignment calibration, which reduces the Wu Jing compass cooldown by 1. There's another one here for caravans. I'm sure I can never find it. But you also can do a lot of stuff to say, let's say, just do missiles. So now I know ways I can just really ramp up my research towards missile resistance or missile units, increasing their AP, their base damage, whatever it is. So really take advantage of this new search function, which I think was actually always been there, but really make sure that you're looking at the harmony when you are choosing your research tree for Cathay, because you have these 3 huge big things to go through. One thing I want to quickly outline too for Miao Ying is diplomacy. Diplomacy for her is no different than Zhao Ming, but it does have a very specific focus on Cathay. You get a lot of benefits towards working with Cathayan forces, and really the goal for her is to try to either confederate or military alliance a lot of the Cathayans that sit along this Great Bastion wall or right behind her. It's really going to be the focus of her campaign. So I did just want to point this out as a big focus for her, because she has skills that benefit working with other Cathayans, and just to quickly talk about that and show that off. Moving into battle mechanics, Cathay has some pretty elaborate ones, and it really depends upon the units, their modifiers, everything. When we took a look at Khorne, it just simply had some buttons on the right side. You had to reap up some tally of kills, so on and so forth. But for Cathay, they have that same balance, that harmony with yin and yang. And every single unit will be either a yin or a yang unit. Let's take a look over here at our crossbowmen. We hover over this, we can see Battle Harmony Yin. And this is going to give us reload skill and leadership as long as a yang unit is nearby. Active when within 45 meters of a yang unit, effect intensity increases by highest nearby harmony multiplier on a unit. And I'll show that off in just a little bit. But you can see that there's this big, huge circle, this like black/dark gray, brownish circle that goes around, much in the same way that an encouraged circle would be around a leader. And if I click on this unit, I hover over here, we can see Yang. Leadership increased by 6 to up to 12, melee defense plus 6 up to 12. And this is going to only be enabled if a Yin unit is present. And again, you get this nice big white slash light gray circle around the Celestial Dragon Guard. So as I move these guys closer, you'll see the closer we get to that faction banner, and this kind of activates. I've noticed it's about like 45% of the way. Like if I'm just shy of that banner, it'll still work. And that little symbol turns to harmony. It means that things are going well, it's active, it's good to go. And if I hover over this, it says Yin unit nearby. So I get the full benefit. So even if I were to take, let's just say my whole entire army right here, line them up, everyone is still going to have the same overall bonus. But some units, if we look at their unit card, have, look at the Skyjunk, Harmony Amplifier. This unit increases harmony bonuses for nearby units by 25%. Only the strongest amplifier bonus is applied. So if I put this right here, let's just look at this really quick. This says 6 leadership and melee defense. Put the Skyjunk right in it. And now it'll say 7 and 7. So you can see that that fully increases. And I apologize that this little guy right here is there. Here, I'll move that out of the way. Now, if I look at Miao Ying, her harmony amplifier is 100%. So this won't stack up to 125. It'll just simply be 100. And if this current bonus is 7, it was 6 minus the Skyjunk. Let's move the Skyjunk. This is 6. Well, it's going to get doubled now up to 12. So that is the mechanic, the faction mechanic here for Cathay. And another big part of this is also this, the defensive stance. So how this works is after 10 seconds, they'll go from charge resistance 10%, if they're not moving, they're braced, up to charge resistance 25% and armor plus 10. Cathay also gets this whole formation attack. The unit will try to stay in formation when in melee, which works and operates differently than guard. It will try to maintain its formation in its entirety. It won't break it or kind of become a blob or anything like that. It can kind of make adapting to how to fight with Cathay very difficult. So if you do plan on playing Cathay, just know that you're going to have to kind of work around this new formation attack button, because it kind of can make things a little funky when trying to have a nice wall connect with your enemy. They might stay in a really rigid formation, which you really didn't want. So I would say just take some time to get used to it, because it will be a little funky once you jump into your first battle as Cathay. And that covers everything from Miao Ying the Storm Dragon, all of her mechanics, how she plays on the map, and everything like that. But the ultimate question here is, how does this campaign really play? Is it for you? What kind of focus are we dealing with? And Miao Ying is different than Zhao Ming in that you are not focused with the interior of Cathay and the defense of that interior. You are worried about the defense of the Great Bastion. That is where your focus will lie. In fact, if you take a look at your first starting province of Mines of Nanyang and Nanli, it's really what you'll get, and then that's it. You'll pretty much be focused on this whole portion of the map, trying to kind of stick to this, keep these territory in Cathayan hands, and then push out and go out to this direction if you so wish. But really, playing a defensive game makes for a very interesting campaign that is unlike many of the other campaigns we've had in Total War. Your real true focus is making sure that this doesn't fall in any way, shape, or form. And once you do, you can kind of expand as you so wish, but you'll notice at the beginning of the campaign, you're just going to be spending time right here. And unlike Zhao Ming, you're going to be spending a lot of time trying to confederate and make this large, grand Cathayan defense against chaos, which is actually kind of has a really cool, overwhelming, almost like epic stance against these oncoming hordes. And as you progress, you'll find that this Great Bastion will get harder and harder and harder to defend, because you're dealing with so many incursions and offense against your lands. You can push over here into these regions over here, but again, mainly as Zhao Ming, you'll be doing that. But as Miao Ying, you'll be solidifying your borders and really trying to take the fight to chaos into the wastes. So if you want to play a kind of King of the Hill, defend the gate at all costs type of campaign, then Miao Ying is really going to be for you. And I personally, like I've said before, I find I enjoy the lore of Yang a little bit better than Yin, but it fits her defensive state to kind of be a character that is trying to deter against missile defense, right? Or slow things down, or use Talons of Night as a really only true offensive ability with Miao Ying. There are ones in the lore of Yin that can help you out, but overall, I think it fits her playstyle. I just prefer the other lore more because it's more flashy and explosive, and there's fire. But hopefully this gives you a better idea now for how Miao Ying plays in the map and what her overall goal is in this campaign. And it really is a campaign of unification across this great bastion. But if you have any other questions about Miao Ying's campaign or anything that I maybe missed, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. There are plenty of things to dive into with this campaign. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one, and take care.